As Dory said, I'm Stacy Washington. I work in the utility reform team. I'm just going to go over the agenda for today. So first, we're going to have intros and priorities and your information on your municipality after I do the review of the agenda. And then after that, Stan's going to come and do the state of the EV market. And after that, we'll have resources by Dory. And this will be broken up as a panel, a presentation, and then table conversation. So be prepared after that to discuss the resources that you use at your at your local government. After the resources, we'll have lunch at 12 o'clock, followed by Florida DEPW mitigation plan update. And then after that, we'll have FDAX come and speak at 1:30. After that, I will come up for 30 minutes talking about utility programs. We'll have a presentation, and then we'll have a group discussion. 2:30, we'll have a local programs portion, which will be a presentation by Jacksonville, ownership models, and then a table of conversations with a report out part. So you'll have a good mix of different things there, followed by a break. And then at 3:45, we'll have a discussion about what is needed now. And that'll be broken up also as a presentation, a couple of presentations, and a group conversation and report out. Then at 4:30, we'll have time for you to get together with people you may not have spoken with but wanted to speak with. Give you a time to network with everyone in the room outside of your tables. And then we'll have a wrap up. So next, Stan.
Can everybody hear me fine, or do you want me to use the microphone?
He needs this. He needs the mic for.
Oh, for you. Okay.
It's for him.
Hi. All right, here, watch out. I don't want to trip you. Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to talk a little bit about sort of the state of the market here in Florida in particular, but also with some context of about what's happening nationwide. So you all may know that every year, Southern Alliance for Clean Energy works with a group called Atlas Public Policy. We put together a report that tracks electric transportation in the Southeast, including in Florida. And we're looking across a series of metrics. We've been doing this for 6 years now. And so we can start to see some of the trend lines and what's happening here in the Southeast around electric transportation. This is becoming increasingly important because we're now living in an era of disinformation. Right? And so there's a lot of headlines out there about what's happening in the EV space. That impacts all of our work. And I think, I was just speaking for myself, I'll wake up some mornings after reading a whole bunch of headlines and wondering if I should go into a different field of work. Like, is this even happening? What's going on? And so looking back at the data and kind of seeing how these trend lines are forming, I think is really valuable. So I'm going to take you through a few things here. Let's see if I can get this to work. Okay. So I want to start by talking about what I think is a really important metric, and that is consumer interest in electric vehicles, right? Because at the end of the day, this is a consumer product. If consumers don't want it, whether it's fleet operators or just regular consumers, then this market has nowhere to go. And what we see in the data just over the course of this 12-month period from October 2024 to October 2025, when the rhetoric about electric vehicles from the political side really heated up, where the disinformation campaigns really kicked in, and where there was a lot coming at consumers to try to steer them away from electric transportation, consumer desire held pretty steady. In fact, in October 2025, it reached a high point, for the year in 2025. And this is still continuing now. So that consumer sentiment staying relatively flatlined through all of the noise, I think is a really positive sign, right? Because if 25% of all new car shoppers are seriously considering buying an EV, that continues to provide momentum, in the marketplace. So this is a number that we'll keep watching, and as long as that's staying flat or growing, I think that there's a lot of consumer interest that's still driving, regardless of what's happening in the political realm. The other place where we're keeping an eye is the used car market. So before pretty much this past year, the used car market was pretty weak for electric vehicles. It has gotten very robust in the last year. And that's because a lot of the folks who have bought new EVs have leased them. How many folks in the room own an EV, like as a personal vehicle? Did you all buy them outright on the new market? Okay. Did you buy used market? Okay. I bought mine on the used market too. How about you, Stacy? Okay. So what we're seeing on the used market is a lot of consumers leased their vehicles, and those vehicles are beginning to come off lease en masse, where you're seeing 1 million, 1.5 million EVs coming off lease. They're then hitting the used car market. And unlike in the new car market where EVs still have a premium, in the used car market, they're already at price parity with the gas equivalent. So I just used this example here of the Hyundai Kona, where the electric and the gas are basically the same price, right? But if you buy the electric, as we all know, you're saving money day one when you bring that home and are driving it. So the reason why we're keeping an eye on this used car market is because even if the new car market slumps, like it is, like we expected it to, while the market readjusts to a new policy landscape, the used car market remains robust. What also goes with this is that 94% of EV owners buy an EV again. So if you couple all of this together, even though the new car sales numbers may decline, the total number of Americans driving EVs is growing significantly. Because all these used EVs are going to new people, and the people who are getting rid of them are getting another EV, right? And so we're seeing this real growth in the amount of EVs on the road and in driveways. And that's really important because we recognize that the number one salesperson for an EV is your neighbor, your friend, your family member who has an EV. So the more people who are getting into them, the more people who are getting interested in them. So I think in these numbers, there's some hope, right, that we're going to maintain momentum even as the politics of EVs play out. So we're about ready to release an updated data that takes us through the end of 2025 for the Southeast, but also for Florida. I was able to pull a couple of those data points just to share with you today. And so, one thing that just happened in Florida is it just got in the game of manufacturing investments in a significant way. So we now have some EV manufacturing happening in Florida, which is great. That wasn't the case before. And it's situated in the Southeast, which is the nation's leading region for EV-related manufacturing. It's good to see Florida starting to get in the game. But it's not Florida's strong point. Right, and so Florida is not a manufacturing hub. It's not a big job creator in the EV space. But nonetheless, it still is the strongest EV market here in the Southeast. We don't have the new sales data yet. We're still processing that this week, but Florida remains on top of the region. The other thing that we've seen in Florida is some significant growth in EV charging deployment. Right, so over the last year, there was a 25% growth in the total number of ports of EV chargers here in the state, and it's now number 2 in the region. And then we also continue to see a real lack of public funding in the state of Florida for electric transportation. It ranks 6th in the Southeast for drawing in public funding. That would mean sort of drawing public funding down from the federal government to support electrification, or committing any state dollars to funding electrification, right? So these stats only go through June. Like I said, we don't have the EV stats, sales stats yet for the end of the year, but this trend line is likely to continue. And what we see with Florida is it's the only state in the Southeast that is actually ahead of the national average for EV sales market share. That means the percentage of EVs that are purchased among all new car purchases, right? So Florida is the number 2 market in the country right now for electric vehicles, and the only one exceeding the national average here in the Southeast. I just wanted to pause quickly on this slide just to give you all some context that when you're hearing about manufacturing in the Southeast for electric transportation, it is a wide range of manufacturing that's happening, but most of it is in the battery space. Right, so there's a lot of that battery manufacturing happening, adjacent to Florida and really helping drive the market. We are also seeing, as you can see in 2025, a drop-off. So because of the political conditions for electric transportation, we're starting to see some businesses not succeed in what they had projected they were going to be able to do for manufacturing and job creation. So this is something that we're going to keep watching, but this is a real hot button in the political realm for electric transportation, because if the policies that are being put in place now lead to significant reduction in private sector investment and job growth, that's going to put politicians in a really challenging position about where they want to keep politicizing electric transportation at the risk of their states losing economic development and job growth. And when we look at those numbers in the region, again, to give you context, you can see how much more activity there is in the states north of Florida, right? Particularly in Georgia, the Carolinas, and Tennessee. And those 4 states represent 4 of the top 8 states in the country for manufacturing investment. So if you were situated in any of those states right now, the conversation really is driven by the economic development and job growth opportunity of electric vehicles. Obviously, that's not the case here, right? And so we're talking about EVs in a different context in Florida than we are in your neighboring states. I want to, this is sort of the last slide I wanted to show you, but we track utility, the investor-owned utility investment. So this does not include JEA. It does not include Orlando Utility Commission, because we can't track their data reliably because they're not filing in the public domain for their investments. But for the investor-owned utilities, we track how much they're investing, and we look at that on a per capita basis. So based on all of their customers in their territory, how much money are they investing per customer in electric transportation. And you can see that Florida is leading the region with FP&L and Duke both investing significantly more money than most of the other utilities are investing. But you can also see just how far away they are from the national average. So we're also in a region and in a state where utility investment is significantly lagging compared to what's happening nationwide. That would be through June 2025, so cumulative.
Starting from?
I believe the first investments were probably around 2019 or so that were made. So this is another thing that we're watching, right? And we're really encouraging utilities to think of creative ways to step up and support, especially supporting their large customers, especially local governments. You know, so this is a place where we see momentum in Florida. We have utilities that are investing at a decent per capita rate compared to the rest of the region, and thinking about how can we leverage that to help keep momentum, help local governments maintain momentum even as some of these other headwinds are blowing. And with that, any questions on that so far? I'll be here all day. Yeah, go ahead, yeah. Sure. So definitely the charging infrastructure for sure. But then it's also kind of the rate design and different programs that utilities are starting to offer. So for example, FP&L has what they call their demand charge limiter, which helps to reduce the impact of demand charges on fast charging service providers, which has really helped the EV market. Because if you're running a fast charger in a market where it's not getting a lot of activity, demand charges can make your business run in the red. And so it really makes the private sector not want to invest. FP&L's demand charger has helped unlock, limiter has helped unlock investment in their territory in fast charging. So that's not a direct investment in charging, but it is an investment. They're pulling in less money from their demand charges in order to support EV infrastructure getting deployed. Another example would be with Duke Energy and their charger prep program, which is their Make Ready program. They're offering credit for people to install EV chargers based on the future revenue that charger is going to provide the utility. And that's helping significantly reduce the amount of money that it costs to put in infrastructure, including for local governments, and especially for like multi-unit dwelling market, which is really tough to get into. That charger prep credit program can really help. So those are other examples of kind of what utilities are doing to invest in the space. It's not hard infrastructure, but yet supporting the installation of that infrastructure. What this corresponds to is there was, at the beginning of 2025, there were a lot of attractive EVs that came to market, such as the Chevy Equinox. You also had vehicles like the Hyundai Ioniq 5, which sells really well, shift to a different charging standard, the North American charging standard, which is what Tesla uses on its fast chargers, which opens up the Tesla charging network to those vehicles. So there were some things happening in the market there that I think got customers really excited, and led to some really strong sales for brands like Cadillac and GM and Hyundai all did really well last year. And this is sort of when they all announced, those new products. So I think that might have had something to do with it.
And Stan, I did want to point out to you that this is the percentage that are very likely to consider. When you add in likely to consider, that number is closer to 60% of shoppers.
Yep.
And I wish that there was like 2 lines or something
Yeah,
for that
yeah,
graph,
yeah.
but it doesn't have it. But I think that that's like a really interesting point, is that more than half of shoppers would consider an EV.
And I think this goes, and I'll end here because I know we're pressed on time, but I think part of what these numbers are showing is that there is a disconnect between what consumers are reporting to folks like Consumer Reports and JD Power and Cox Automotive and the groups that do these kind of surveys, because the numbers are consistent across all the different surveys, and what people are being made to believe in the media. And I think that disconnect is something that we want to all be really paying attention to, and it is our collective challenge, right? For you all to sell EV adoption, whether it's the impending Florida tax on EV issue that's been brought up, or whether it's just all the noise about the EV market, it makes it more difficult to convince decision makers that, yeah, no, this market's real, it's happening. But there are numbers buried in the data that show that it is. So whatever we can do to help you on that side of things, don't hesitate to reach out. Between SSDN and SACE, we have a lot of data on what's happening in the market that we can help share to help you all make the case. All right, well, I'll be here all day, so any other questions that come up, feel free to ask me, and I'll figure out what those businesses are and where they are. All right, great. Thanks, Story.